Okay, so you want to buy a gym. A gym is the only fitness business on earth that makes more money the less its customers actually work out. Every other business wants you to use the product. A gym wants you to pay for it, feel briefly motivated in January, and then quietly stop showing up. 67% of gym members rarely or never use their membership. 18% never show up even once. That's not a bug in the business model. That's the business model. You're not really selling fitness. You're selling the intention to get fit. And intentions are a lot cheaper to fulfill than actual squats. Now, before you write the check, let's talk about the price list, because it comes in 3 very different tiers. At the cheap end, you've got the unmanned budget gym, 1,400 to 2,500 square feet, usually a former retail unit nobody else wanted.
$50,000 to $150,000 gets you open, if you find a space where the flooring and mirrors are already installed from a previous tenant. No trainers on staff, no smoothie bar, just a card reader, a handful of second-hand machines, and a prayer that enough people sign up and never come. The middle tier is the franchise route, and Planet Fitness is the poster child. Total investment for a single club runs $1.28 million to $5.4 million per their 2026 franchise disclosure documents. $40,000 franchise fee up front, just to use the name. 7% royalty on every dollar of membership revenue, forever, plus a 2% ad fund tax on top of that. And here's the part that doesn't make the brochure. Planet Fitness barely signs single-unit operators anymore.
They want multi-unit developers with $5 million to $20 million in real capital, because one lonely gym in one strip mall isn't worth their paperwork. At the top, you've got the Equinox model, and this is where the number stops looking like a gym and starts looking like a mortgage. Build-out alone runs $50 to $300 per square foot before a single dumbbell shows up, because you're paying for marble, eucalyptus towels, and a juice bar with a barista. Monthly dues run $205 to $395 for a single club membership. Want every location nationwide? $380 to $480 a month. And if you want to go big, Equinox now sells a longevity program called Optimize for $40,000 a year. That's $3,300 a month to be told what time to go to sleep. But here's the thing. Before you sign anything, you need to understand the rules of this game, and they're stricter than almost any other retail business you could buy. Health clubs are one of the most heavily regulated consumer businesses in America, and that's not an accident. It's the direct result of decades of predatory contracts. Most states now have specific health club statutes governing cancellation rights, cooling off periods, and automatic renewal, because gyms spent 50 years making it nearly impossible to quit once you'd signed. In 2025, the New York Attorney General settled with Equinox over exactly this problem. Hard to cancel memberships, deceptive renewal terms, penalties, mandatory policy changes, refunds for eligible members. Then there's the lease, and this is where a lot of first-time owners get blindsided.
Commercial gym leases typically run 10 to 15 years, often with a personal guarantee attached, because landlords know fitness tenants fail constantly and want your house as collateral if you do. On top of that, you're carrying liability insurance for a facility full of people lifting heavy metal objects directly over their own faces. You need ADA compliance for accessible equipment and locker rooms. None of this shows up in the glossy franchise brochure. All of it shows up in year 1, usually as a surprise invoice. And even after the doors open, the paperwork never stops. Every trainer needs a certification on file, because bad form advice from an uncertified trainer turns a sprained wrist into a six-figure lawsuit. Liability waivers help, but courts have thrown them out when a gym was found negligent. Add workers' comp, OSHA requirements, and mandatory equipment inspections, and you understand why owners underestimate the real cost of staying open.
So now let's get to how the money works, because this is where the model gets genuinely interesting. Take Planet Fitness. $10 to $20 a month for a classic card. The average location carries around 6,500 members. The average location physically holds about 300 people at once. 6,500 members, 300 seats. That ratio only works if the vast majority of your customers never actually walk through the door. And they don't. Half of all new gym members quit showing up within 6 months of joining. Industry-wide annual churn runs 30 to 40%. Planet Fitness isn't fighting that number. It built an empire directly on top of it. The franchisor barely cares whether any individual member ever shows up. Corporate collects its 7% royalty on gross membership revenue regardless of attendance, sells equipment packages to franchisees at a markup, and runs a national ad fund off everyone's monthly dues.
Median revenue per franchised unit hit $1.86 million in fiscal 2025 across roughly 2,300 locations. The franchisor makes money whether you personally ever do a single squat, and honestly prefers it that way, because a member who never shows up never breaks equipment either. Equinox runs the opposite math. Fewer members, a much higher price per head, and the bet isn't on no-shows, it's on retention and upsell. Personal training packages that run hundreds of dollars a session, a $40,000 a year longevity program stacked on top of dues that are already among the highest in the industry. The luxury gym doesn't need you absent, it needs you obsessed, showing up constantly and buying everything adjacent to the membership itself. Boutique studios split the difference, running on class capacity instead of floor space. A single group class might hold 24 people at $40 to $75 a session, and the economics hinge on filling that room over and over, all day. Miss your fill rate by even a few bodies per class, and the model falls apart fast. Because unlike a big box gym, a boutique studio has almost no cushion from members who quietly pay and never show. Now, the architecture behind this is far more deliberate than it looks from the front desk. Contracts are engineered for friction. 12-month terms, automatic renewal baked in by default, cancellation that requires an in-person visit or a notarized letter or a phone call during hours nobody actually works. That's not an oversight, and regulators are finally noticing, which is why Equinox got hit with that 2025 settlement. Facility capacity is engineered too. A budget gym is not accidentally undersized for its member count. It's sized for the 20% who actually show up, not the 80% who paid once and vanished. Peak hours get crowded on purpose, because building enough square footage for a crowd that mostly doesn't exist would be an insane waste of rent. And then there's the upsell layer running quietly underneath the base membership. Planet Fitness's Black Card runs about $25 a month instead of $10, adding tanning beds, massage chairs, and guest privileges most people also barely use. Equinox stacks personal training, recovery suites, and supplement sales on top of dues that are already sky high. The gym floor itself is essentially the loss leader. Everything sold next to it is where the actual margin lives. Let's look at who won this game and who got crushed by it. Start with the win.
Planet Fitness went public in 2015 and built the judgment-free zone into one of the most profitable franchise systems in American fitness, precisely by embracing low price and low attendance instead of fighting it. Thousands of locations later, it remains one of the few gym chains that consistently prints money for its franchisor, even in years when individual clubs struggle. Now, the losses. In June 2020, 24 Hour Fitness filed for Chapter 11, carrying $1.4 billion in debt. It permanently closed more than 130 clubs and needed a $250 million loan just to stay open. A month earlier, Gold's Gym filed its own Chapter 11. Only 32 corporate-owned locations were affected, about 10% of its global footprint, with the rest protected because it was franchisee-owned. Still, the corporate entity listed $50 to $100 million in assets and liabilities and sold itself off in a $100 million asset sale to satisfy creditors. And then there's F45. Maybe the most dramatic collapse of the three. Backed publicly by Mark Wahlberg, it went public in 2021 at a $1.4 billion valuation. The stock ran from a high of $16 down to 53 cents before delisting from the New York Stock Exchange in August 2023. Restated financials showed a combined $372 million loss across 2021 and 2022. F45 lost a $250 million financing facility that franchisees relied on to open new studios, slashed its new franchise targets by roughly 60%, and watched more than 150 existing franchises get listed for sale as owners scrambled to get out. Don't assume the top tier is immune either. In 2025, Equinox itself had to raise $1.8 billion from private capital investors just to refinance $1.2 billion in debt maturing that same week. Marble lobbies and $40,000 longevity programs don't mean a business is safe. They mean the debt is bigger, and the refinancing is more dramatic when it comes due. So let's run the actual numbers. Optimistic case first. You open a small independent gym for $150,000. You sign 500 members at $30 a month average, inside 4,500 square feet of pure ambition. That's $15,000 a month in revenue. Rent, staff, utilities, and equipment financing eat maybe $10,000 of it. $5,000 a month in profit, and you've paid back your entire build-out in roughly 2.5 years, assuming your membership count never once drops. Realistic case. It drops. Annual churn sits at 30 to 40% industry-wide, which means you're replacing a third of your member base every single year just to stand still. And every new member costs real marketing dollars to acquire. You've also probably heard that 81% of gyms fail in their first year. That number is fake. It traces back to a single unsourced 2018 webinar comment, not any actual dataset. The real first-year failure rate for gyms sits closer to 24 to 32%, in line with any other small business. Reassuring, until you remember that's still 1 in 4 not making it past year 1. Here's the paradox, and it's a genuinely good one. The gym business doesn't actually sell fitness.
It sells the intention to get fit, which is a far easier product to deliver, because intentions don't require a clean locker room or a functioning air conditioner. The single most profitable member a gym will ever sign is the one who commits to a 12-month contract every January, shows up twice, and then keeps paying anyway out of guilt until the automatic renewal quietly kicks in next December. You are not really the customer of a gym. You are the customer of your own optimism, billed monthly with a 7% royalty attached. So, if you're doing this purely for the returns, and not because you genuinely love watching strangers argue over who's using the squat rack, buy the index fund instead. It won't judge you for skipping leg day, but it also won't sell you a black card.